Hey, what's up, guys? VHS Voyager here, and today we're going to be talking about a movie. A horror movie. So this is going to be like my first horror movie video, and movie I want to be talking about is called A Classic Horror Story. So this is an Italian horror movie that's on Netflix that it popped up in my recommended, and you see the title and you're like, what the hell is this? And then I looked at it, it looked interesting, checked it out, and yeah, let's talk about it. So just as a disclaimer, this video will contain spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you plan on watching it, I recommend that you turn off the video now, because I do not plan on filtering myself. So there will be spoilers. Anyway, so I actually did enjoy this movie quite a bit. So, going into it, I didn't know what to expect, really. It starts out with, there's a group of people that are carpooling in this RV, and they're traveling across the country, and what ends up happening is the RV ends up in a car accident, crashing into a tree. There was like a dead goat in the road, and they end up crashing into a tree, and then everyone gets knocked out, passed out, and when they wake up, the RV is in the middle of a clearing, in the middle of the woods, with no road in sight, and the only thing that's there is this wooden house, which is weird and supposedly is like the home location of like some kind of crazed cult. So needless to say, bad stuff starts to happen to the people who can't find their way out of the woods. They're seemingly stuck there. And yeah, so I'm not gonna explain the whole movie. There's some twists in the movie and some interesting foreshadowing in the film. But I did actually enjoy the twist in this movie. So initially, you think that something weird happened, something like supernatural, where somehow they got relocated to somewhere that's not of this earth, and they can't escape the woods, because there's multiple occasions throughout the movie where they try to walk out of the woods and find the road, and they always end up right back into the clearing. As it turns out, this turns out not to be supernatural, but which is part of the twist. But yeah, in the initial half or so of the movie, it feels very supernatural. Like there's this weird otherworldly presence. Like they're not on Earth anymore. They're in this like purgatory, and they're just somewhere else. And yeah, so nighttime comes, and then you see members of this cult roll in, and they start picking people off and doing these ritualistic sacrifice type things, which was interesting. Movie is quite graphic in some parts, quite graphic. You see them take a giant wooden sledgehammer to a guy's ankles and snap his ankles, and they drill his eyes out. And with this like medieval device with a crank, like a hand crank that has spikes that go down, and yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. They sacrifice some people, and then the twist actually ends up being that the whole thing is actually a scheme that was set up by the guy that owns the RV that they were carpooling in, and he's actually recording horror films, but they're basically like snuff films where they're actually killing people, and they were recording it for I guess the Italian mafia was the thing, which was an interesting twist. But really, if you pay attention to this character, the one that is setting them up the whole time, they really do foreshadow that this guy, there's something off with him, because when they first get into the RV, he's already recording them with a camcorder. He's like, oh, I'm recording a travel blog, but And a whole bunch of weird stuff. You know, when they end up in the middle of the woods, and then he's like, "Oh, this is like the setup of a classic horror movie. It's blah blah blah," and there's a whole bunch of things that hint that there's something off with him. I mean, I had it kind of figured out before they fully revealed that he was in on it, and then yeah. So the end of the movie, towards the end, you know, the main character, friggin', you know, she gets her revenge. She escapes from being. This is actually where foreshadowing comes in, because there's a part that I noticed in the very beginning of the movie where she sees a painting, like a religious painting, where it's not Jesus, but it you know, it's someone who had been crucified, and they're holding up their hands like this with holes in them in the painting. I'll even find like a screen cap and pop it up. So there's that in the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movie, she has her hands nailed down into like a chair, like a wheelchair, and she ends up pulling her hands off of the nails, and she has the holes in her hands, and she does that same pose, which I was like, oh yeah, that's from the beginning of the movie. They were foreshadowing that there. So I thought that was a really cool, like, artistic, you know, little thing that could have easily gone over people's heads, or like not over people's heads, but easy to miss. It's very easy to miss. But yeah, anyway, she escapes. She gets a gun. She gets her revenge, and then she ends up at the end of the movie. She ends up on the beach. She ends up escaping the property. She finds like this, I don't know, some kid that was trespassing in the woods over there, and ends up following that kid as he runs away out off the property and into the, you know, back into civilization, if you will. She goes to the beach, and then everyone is got their phones out, and they're recording her as she like walks across the beach all bloody and just looks like death. And the movie ends with her just kind of walking into the ocean and going underwater, and then it just cuts to the credits, which that part, I don't know how I feel about the very, 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 very last like 2 minutes, because it kind of leaves you off like, why did she go into the water, and just it just cuts out there. Like, does she die? Does she bleed out in the water? Does she live? No one's trying to help her. Like, everyone's just reporting her. I don't know if that's just like social commentary, where we're just like, they're not willing to help, but they'll record it, and like they'll just sit back and record whenever there's weird things happening or bad things happening, or, you know, like people, it happens in real life all the time, where you have people fighting or causing a scene in like a restaurant or a place of business, and they're like breaking stuff or abusing an employee, and instead of like actually helping control the situation, they'll just sit back with their phone and record it. So thinking they might have had some like social commentary with that. And another thing with this movie is I feel like it was very self-aware. Like, you know, a lot of common horror tropes, and then like they do plays on that. And it was very self-aware, especially with the way that it twisted into this thing where it was like, you know, you thought it was supernatural, and then it twists into this thing where it's just, they're making these like snuff films, like actually killing people for entertainment. And he goes on to explain how, you know, people aren't willing to admit that they like these violent and gross things, and they're like, oh, we won't make it because, oh, that's gross, that's what the you know, like the main villain of the film was talking about when he was giving his commentary towards the end of the film. And so I guess it's like people secretly do actually enjoy this, like these gore and like the killing and the violence, and then but that no one wants to admit it. Like, I could be wrong on that, but that kind of felt like that's what it was hinting at. But yeah, overall, this was a really cool film. I actually was pleasantly surprised. I had never seen, at least none that I can recall, I've never seen any Italian horror films. I've seen a lot of Asian horror, so like Korean and Japanese horror I have seen a bunch of, which I do enjoy too, but I've never seen anything from Italy in particular. So that was kind of cool to see. And yeah, overall I enjoyed the movie. It was pretty good. It had a nice twist. And I really don't have many bad things to say about the film. It had some nice, you know, haunting moments. You know, the kill scenes were graphic and unsettling and what have you. So it wasn't overly gory. I wouldn't call it like torture porn or anything like that. It wasn't like overly gory, but it did have its graphic moments. So definitely a very entertaining film. I would definitely recommend it to people to watch. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say on the movie. I would give it a solid like 7 out of 10. It was pretty good. Pretty good. So anyway, if you got to the end of the video, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know I kind of just like rambled on for 10 minutes, but you know, if you guys have seen the movie, at least I'm hoping if you watched through this, you have already seen the movie. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. If you liked the movie, if you didn't like the movie, if you agree with some of the stuff I said, did you notice the foreshadowing that I mentioned? Or maybe you don't think that was foreshadowing at all, I'm just imagining it. You know, just let me know your thoughts down below. And if you guys have any horror movie recommendations for me, let me know, because I love horror, and I feel like I don't get enough good horror movies anymore. Like, it's just so hard to find good horror nowadays. I always love the classics from the 80s, and then I feel like a lot of newer stuff, at least American Hollywood films, kind of use the same cheap tricks in all the movies, and they're not really super interesting. But I'm always on the hunt for fun, entertaining movies. It doesn't matter where it's from. I don't care what language it's in. I will watch it. Subtitles don't bother me. I love foreign films. I especially love Korean and Japanese horror. I think they do it better than we do, because I feel like their horror is more creepy, atmospheric, unsettling, where American horror is just blah 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 jump scares. You know, that's what we do, and they actually create like a creepy, unsettling atmosphere that makes you like on the edge of your seat, like what's gonna happen, you know. Anyway, I'm rambling, so I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, give me recommendations, and until next time, Voyager out.